growing up, so I can still come back to it and it like touches me in the right places, and
Yeah.
So so I relate to the game more easily than the kind of older people who don't relate to it, who are often broadly critical of it, and like maybe that's part of the problem, and that definitely is part of the problem as well. But how did I die? What the fuck? Okay, anyway. Alright, I'll be fine. Whatever. But thankfully, I just spent a lot of my gold. Wow, I'm all the way back at Tantegel Castle. Jesus.
Dragon Quest.
That's why you gotta use those save states. So you gotta make those,
actually, no, I have a save state. I'm gonna do that, thanks.
I just saved it 5 minutes ago, but I needed the reminder.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is that, okay, so like Final Fantasy VIII is a game that like it's one of those games that stereotyped as like having a really emo protagonist, quote unquote.
Okay.
And really, like, honestly, it's not even that bad. Like, they talk about like how he's like the most like brokenhearted or like emo, whatever the fuck. But it's just like when you actually like play the game, it's really not that bad, really.
It's
if anything, he's not like emo. He's just like awkward as shit while having depression, which is it comes with the territory.
Yeah, and the thing about it is that, well, that's what I'm saying, is that we allow stereotypes of like how, and the thing about like Final Fantasy VIII is that like, okay, we think of him as like this emo type character because he wears black leather. He fucking looks like well, he was modeled after River Phoenix, but who's the dude from Nine Inch Nails? Like, he looks like Trent Reznor. It's just like if we were to put Trent Reznor in a video game, he would look like Squall. And so we think of, and we allow our broad stereotyping to just allow us to just mischaracterize these people. And the thing about it, and this is what the thing, like my article that I wrote recently is going to be, it is about, partially, is the thing about it is that it's like, that's, like, Squall's not that type of character. In fact, the entire game, like, he's not the kind of guy who's constantly screaming about how sad he is all the fucking time, and,
Yeah.
And the thing about it is his, the entire character arc of the game is that he thinks that like holding all of his depression in or whatever is like an idea of maturity or whatever, and it's so false and fake, and it's just like, and the idea is that he needs to express his feelings to his friends or whatever and help himself. He needs to take care of himself and also like help other people and that sort of thing. And it's like, and at least in that sense, it totally gets that heart of depression right about like how people will like hold it in and like just kind of normalize it and that sort of thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And so what I'm saying is that we allow our stereotyping to happen so well is that in such a way that we, get a character, like an image of a character who's completely the opposite actually is, and it has real world consequences because, and I'm going to take a sip here. It has real world consequences because the same thing happened to Cloud from Final Fantasy VII. He's mostly a quiet character, and like I wouldn't say he has like the same struggles with depression. There's like the same kind of like identity issues and that sort of thing.
Yeah. It's for a different reason, but I mean it's still like a common theme.
But I mean, this lies in, and I know that I'm also speaking in some abstract here, but this lies in a weird sort of inability for a lot of people to be able to actually really understand and engage with what the game is actually doing.
Exactly, it's about the fact that
it's a lot of like
work.
I might, if I can just write this fucking email, I might end up getting an article up about Sonic. I might be able to actually get a piece about Sonic the Hedgehog on the site. Yes, and if you follow me on Twitter, you know that is a thing. But but like it's also this thing where I mean, with Sonic is different because Sonic, I think people tend to confuse marketing Sonic what Sonic actually is. Sonic as a content is very, very mature and very heavy, but no one seemed to actually notice it for some reason because everyone was so preoccupied with the sort of surface level of what Sonic tends to present to us. No one was actually able to dig into its content. But again, I mean, so I mean, first of all, that's really sad because I think there are a lot of examples of games where you see that these games are trying to do something, it just flies over everyone's heads. Just no one even sees it, and that's kind of sad.
That's what happened to Metal Gear Solid 2.
Well, maybe because it's just sad that this is a game that seems to really have a really interesting and nuanced discussion of depression. Yet it's just it just turns to blind ears. Like that is kind of disappointing.
And the thing about it is that I can't help but feeling like vindicated in my belief that this is what this game is about and that it does it well, because I know other people who like Final Fantasy VIII. The game that this audience was seeking, it spoke to, you know.
You know what? If you can find, I don't want to say evidence, but if you can relate what you say to the text, quote unquote, then it works, right? This is the idea. This is criticism, right? Like I see this, like here's real stuff in the game that I am observing right now, and I'm connecting this to stuff. Like if you can do that, then your argument's straight. Then you have no problems.
And
right?
the great thing about it is that it's about...
if you can point it out like hardcore in the game, like 2020, then like you're good. You know, here's what he says. Here's what he does. Like, here's what he, like stuff like that. So.
Well, not to give away the whole essay, but like, I mean, real quote from Final Fantasy VIII is basically a real quote from Final Fantasy VIII is something people end up disappointing you. As long as you don't get your hopes up, you can take anything.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shit.
You know, like, and that's like, this is the entire philosophy that informs his life. This is like, he says this kind of fairly early on too, and it explains his entire character in like a single sentence. And there's the thing is like, and I could just talk for days about Final Fantasy VIII. It's actually like, even though
it really is like a good game.
Even though the story,
it's got its things.
Even though the plot itself is one of the weaker of the main series, like the game's sense of storytelling is one of the strongest in the series. Like for just to give like one example, there's the love interest character, Renault, and I shouldn't call her that because she's actually a lot better defined than just love interest character, and that's actually part of what the new essay is about too.
I thought Final Fantasy VIII did a really great job with their characters. Like they like consistently made characters that I like cared about.
Yeah. And the thing about so like for example, we have Renoa, who is she's the main woman protagonist of the game. And she's Squall's love interest. What?
The woman.
Oh, crap, hold on.
Yeah. Like Final Fantasy games kind of do that. There's usually like there's typically like not always like a strong center character necessarily, but there does tend to at least be like a kind of couple that you're rooting for. And the thing is that most of the time they're at the center of the story. Like in Final Fantasy VII, it's like it's either Cloud and Aeris or Cloud and Tifa, depending on how you're looking at it. And in Final Fantasy VIII, it's Squall and Renoa. And and so you're rooting for them. And in Final Fantasy IX, it's Zidane and Dagger and that sort of thing. So,
that actually reminds me of that thing you said a while back about Final Fantasy X and how Yuna like should have been the main character.
Right, and that's the thing the later era Final Fantasy games have done a weird mixture of, have done a pretty weird mixture of like just straight up subverting and attacking certain sexist tropes and just having other ones straight up intact.
Yeah.
I think a great example of that is how like Yuna is this wonderful, incredibly defined character who has this really interesting narrative arc, and like her relation to the world is like the emotional center of the game. And yet the game has to have a male protagonist, so it focuses on Tidus instead, who, if you were telling the story of Final Fantasy X to someone, they would say, so Yuna's the main character, right? And you'd say, no, it's Tidus. And they go, what the fuck? You know?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly.
That's interesting. That's very interesting.
Hold on. Holy shit, it's 11 o'clock. This has been so much fun, guys.
Yeah, it's been like bad chill.
Yeah, it's really cool. I might have to leave around 12 o'clock, but we'll see. But I may have to go around 12 usually. But
what time is it over there?
It's 11.
I'm an American. I don't know Canada.
It's just time zones. It's just like aren't you in Maryland?
Yeah. So
we have
Quebec in the Eastern time zone.
Yeah, Eastern time zone.
Oh wow, okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm in Montreal, so
that makes sense. Yeah, like I'm sorry, I literally don't even know where Montreal is. Like I tried to look it up and then I like ended up
really
open.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Luckily over here in the great city of Seattle, it's 8:14, so I got plenty of time.
Yeah, that's part of the reason I wanted to get you in is because like, I know he's got time. He's 3 hours behind. Like.
Yeah. So I mean. Man, I need to go to Seattle one day. Seattle, it always seems like my cup of tea. It seems like a place I want to check out. Definitely.
It's really great. I'm like so happy that I moved here.
You're so happy you got out of freaking Vegas.
Vegas
got
is
your
so
ass
fucking.
out of there.
I'm sitting here like fucking while Zoe Quinn is talking about like her and Nathan Grayson going to Vegas. I'm like, why are you doing that? Don't do that. Turn back now.
Oh man, Vegas. It's just weird to me to think like people actually like live in Vegas, you know?
Yeah,
like,
that's
like
what I
a
was gonna
living
say.
place.
People love Vegas, and I'm just like, I
But
can't
it's a cool
even
place
with any of you.
It seems like a cool place to visit and like think, but to like
It's
live.
a cool place to visit for like 2 days. Once you
Yeah.
hit that third day, it's like, all right, can I get out of here now?
Let me just say this: you might see me you might see all my tweets going like, oh man, there are like so many places that I hate, and I'm trying to figure out places that I like besides Maryland. You might think I'm joking about how much I love Maryland. I love Maryland. I
It
love
seems like
it
a nice
here.
place.
What?
You know? Seems like a nice place.
Well, I mean, there's obviously, there's Baltimore and there's all of the problems of Baltimore, but of course Baltimore is actually a cool place to be, like culturally speaking, and Washington D.C. is also a great place to be culturally speaking. And hold on a second, I'm doing shit in the weapon shop. Oh shit, I can buy a steel sword.
Buy a steel sword.
Good shit. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. But yeah, that's a different discussion. Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about FF8. Yeah, but
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Final Fantasy VIII. You were talking about
yeah. So
like
there's
11.
Renoa. Renoa is the daughter of someone who. Renoa is the daughter of a military general who's like really overprotective of her, and it's something that I find really interesting is the fact that well, for example, like her personality, like she's the leader of a resistance in a town, and it's just like, but it's not actually working out that well. Like she's really spirited and like everyone really likes her, but like her leadership isn't actually that strong. And there's also the fact that the first time she meets Squall, she sees him like sitting against sitting against a wall at a party, because that's the kind of thing he would do, obviously, you know. And she tries to get him to come dance, and she eventually does, because she's just that kind of, she's just that, And so she basically, it's like we're outlining a Manic Pixie Dream Girl, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Yeah, so we're outlining a Manic Pixie Dream
She's
Girl.
charming, and she puts a lot of energy
into everything
into the thing, and into the male specifically, into the dude. She puts a lot of energy and really on herself. It seems that's what the trope is, anyways.
Yeah, and the thing about it is I think it's a really interesting version of that trope. I kind of argue that it's possibly a subversion, because the thing about it is that it examines. It basically kind of like Renoa kind of answers the question: what would this person actually be like if it were possible for this kind of person to be a real person? And those are the kinds of stories I find really interesting, is they kind of take stuff from storytelling and they try and answer those kinds of questions. So the thing about it is that she doesn't just focus on the male, she's also really focused on her mission in Timber or whatever. So we see like reflections of that personality in other aspects of her life. That's consistent characterization across, and that's consistent characterization. That's good storytelling. And the thing about it is we also learn later that, she lives with her father who's super domineering over her. And so like basically the image that we get is like, oh, so we basically, we can understand that like she really involves herself in other people's lives, because she has like no agency in her own, and she doesn't have no agency in her own life because she's a female character in a video game. She has, she has no agency in her own life because of her because of her relationship with her father. And that sort of thing, and so it's
interesting because it puts the blame on the fact that she just exists as a woman, but mostly just because of actually patriarchy, because of this sort of like patriarchal father figure.
I wasn't even thinking of it that way, but that's really interesting.
But that's what it is, right? It's this idea of this isn't just a Manic Pixie Dream Girl who just happens to be a woman and has no agency. This is a woman who clearly has the ability to make good things of her agency, but is blocked because of a lot of patriarchal structures, mostly of an overprotective father who doesn't really want to give her much control over her own life. Damn. Final Fantasy
is real as fuck.
Yeah,
yeah,
man,
exactly.
That's
like,
legit. That's legit stuff.
Yeah, and so here's the thing about it, and then it's kind of brilliant, because it's just like, oh well, her father is like a military general, and it's just like, oh well, maybe he's just domineering and authoritarian because he's a military general. But it's also, we also learn later, like, we never see her mother. Like, her mother, like, exists in past flashbacks that happen earlier in the game. But, like, we learned that she died before the game takes place. And the thing about it is that the game doesn't go out of its way for the father to say, I can't